The last photo of Gregory Vance wasn't staged. Sun in his eyes, white linen open at the throat. The Gulf glittered behind him. A champagne flute winked on the chrome rail. He looks healthy, rich, untouchable, until you notice the strain hiding behind the smile. It posted at 7:11 p.m., cellular pings somewhere off Florida's Gulf Coast, latitude shaving, distance from a storm line, crawling north. 37 minutes later, the yacht's AIS blinked out like a candle in wind. The coast was quiet. The radios were not. Vance was 60, publicly gracious and privately exacting. Born middle-class Cincinnati, self-made in shipping. His attorneys called him meticulous. His ex-wife called him inevitable. He liked white shirts, early morning ocean, and closing deals with a slower handshake than he planned to keep. He also liked disappearing onto boats, into NDAs, behind private accounts. The week he vanished, he'd liquidated a silent partnership, bought a second tender, and argued on dock cameras with a deckhand who quit off-screen. The marina manager remembered the voice first, firm, rehearsed, and done being polite. The yacht Asterion was a 22-meter loop of gloss and confidence. 2 cabins, teak decks, a hidden compartment no one saw except a shipwright and a man who paid in cash. The night he left Naples, a storm was forming, but his route skimmed below it, a practiced thread through calm water. He brought only 2 people that the log admits, a captain on contract and a private chef whose Instagram claimed no nights at sea. She deleted that line a day later. The captain signed for 3 life jackets. The yacht carried 8. The call came at 8:03 p.m., an unregistered handset to 911. Muffled wind. A man's voice in a low whisper. Port locker rope. Followed by a thud, a scrape, and water-ringing steel. Dispatch tried callback 3 times. The handset died on the second ring. 40 minutes after that, a shrimp trawler mapped a sudden patch of rainbow sheen and a strip of cork-studded line drifting east. They didn't stop. The storm's first breath came hard. By midnight, the Gulf had turned black glass into knives. Morning pulled the wreckage in. A life ring, a white flip-flop, 3 champagne corks. No body, no hull, no phone. The AIS blackout smothered the route line. The nav plotter later found aboard told a cleaner story. Straight track, sudden kink, hard turn, blackout. Insurance investigators circled like gulls. Their report said, freak weather event, 2 words that make underwriters sleep a little longer. The sheriff's office said, missing, then possible foul play, then nothing for 2 weeks. For the family, silence is a noise that grows teeth. The last people to see Vance alive disagreed about what mattered. The captain said the boss wanted quiet. The chef said the boss wanted spectacle. He turned his chair to the sun like a stage light. A bartender on the dock remembered a woman in a red dress asking, "Does this vessel have a safe?" The cameras caught the dress, not the face. The Marina Gate logged a black SUV at 6:12 p.m., in and out, plate unreadable in rain. The only unimpeached witness was the ocean, and it doesn't testify. Detectives began where rich men end: money. Vance's empire looked clean because dirty money comes dressed for brunch. Subsidiaries nested like dolls. A Cayman trust paid for fuel. A Nevada LLC paid for a research tender with sonar and a capstan no one could explain. Then there was pressure quiet calls from people whose signatures live in buildings with fountains. Keep it routine, one message suggested, without saying, please. The sheriff smiled for cameras and told us, we follow facts at our own pace. You could hear the brakes squeal. Witnesses surface in layers. A dockhand with a nicotine cough remembered a coil of new rope, thick as a man's wrist, loaded aboard in daylight. A diver who cleans hulls said the bilges smelled of bleach the week before. A neighbor on the water said she heard voices arguing on the wind, and a splash that did not sound like weather. When you collect fragments, the outline comes first, then the face. In the outline, a man leaned too close to the edge of something. In the face, someone helped him fall. By day 4, media latched on. The last selfie framed on every chyron. Billionaire vanishes at sea. Morning shows asked experts to perform on command. A retired admiral talked currents with the practiced calm that makes panic profitable. A psychologist said narcissistic thrill-seeking and sold a book minutes later. None of it brought us closer to what happened between sunset and silence. But a search grid grew teeth. Volunteers in center consoles fanned out like hungry commas. The ocean gives back what it wants. It wasn't ready yet. Here's the thing about men like Gregory Vance. They collect enemies the way decks collect salt. Some hate you because you're rich. Some hate you because you're careless. Some hate you because you're careful. Vance had a son from a first marriage who didn't want the company's future, only his father's attention. He had a business partner who smiled with everything except his eyes. He had a lover who wanted promises updated to the present tense. The list was long. The ocean was longer. 4 days after the vanish, a tip shook the case sideways. A spearfisher near a shelf south of Sanibel picked up something that didn't belong. A silver cufflink, shaped like a Greek bull asterion lodged in soft coral. He brought it up, posted it, then deleted it when the comments grew teeth. We got there fast. The current would have had to roll it up the shelf like a coin up a stair. It could have fallen. It could have been placed. The difference is intention, and that's where motive hides. We hired a boat with a pilot who called the sea by first name. We slung a small ROV into water the color of secrets. Sonar lit the seabed in sickly blue contours. The camera gave us silt ghosts and occasional glimpses of living things who didn't care about ours. The pilot smoked and watched screens like they were old friends who owed him money. "If he's down there," he said, "he's heavy." It wasn't cynicism. It was experience speaking the only language it trusts: physics. On the 10th pass, the ROV's floodlights found geometry where nature prefers curves. A straight line snaked across the sand, thick and pale, furred with algae. The camera traced it left, right until it ran to a stone, too big and too clean to belong where it lay. The rope wasn't draped by chance. It was anchored with purpose. The pilot swore softly, a prayer for hard men and harder tides. He feathered the thrusters and pushed the camera beyond the rock. The sand fell away in a gentle hollow like a missing tooth. Bones don't shine underwater. They keep their secrets behind a film of time. But angles betray them: the bracket of a rib, the ellipse of a skull, a hand collapsing into the idea of a hand. The rope ran from the stone to what the ocean was trying to keep, resting on the floor like a quiet admission. The silt lifted and drifted like smoke, and for a moment the whole picture felt suspended. The weight, the knot, the accusation. We didn't speak. The room got smaller. The ocean didn't change its mind. You ask why? I tell it this way, slow, careful, like walking a dark hallway with your palm on the wall. Because truth sinks at the same speed as lies, and divers need lines to find their way back. We marked the coordinates and called the sheriff from the deck, while gulls laughed like they always do. The storm had passed. The sea rolled with that tired rhythm it wears after a fight. Somewhere on shore, the last photo still smiled, and a family got ready to hear what nobody survives hearing. Recovery is a polite word for violence done back to water. Deputies brought a lift bag, a forensics tech who didn't like boats, and a priest who said he was only there for the air. The diver went down with a camera and a knife and a length of clean line like an apology. The surface crew watched numbers count oxygen like a liturgy. At 13 minutes he surfaced, eyes too calm. "It's him," he said, without being asked how he knew. Calm is a kind of wound you learn to respect. They raised the stone first, because the rope wouldn't forgive otherwise. The knot was ugly, functional, more than clever, doubled over with a handful of desperation. The diver cut above it, keeping the knot intact like a signature no one can forge twice. The bag lifted with a shoulder of water, then a thud against hull that made everyone step back. The second lift was gentler because the sea has rules. Show respect or give back what you took. The remains came up shrouded in tarp we didn't pretend was anything else. At the pier, the medical examiner did not hurry. You never hurry the dead. They forgive almost everything except haste. Jewelry was catalogued. A gold watch caught in woven kelp like time refusing to pass. A ring with initials worn thin. That cufflink's twin rattling in the tray like an answer come late. A dental record closed the argument that grief tries to keep open. Gregory Vance had left the world the way he entered deals bound to weight and consequence. Pulled by forces he thought he could outthink. Reporters get louder when answers get quiet. A press conference gave the town crisp sentences about ongoing investigation, cooperation with federal partners, and respect for the family. Cameras asked if the knot meant murder. The sheriff said, "We're exploring all possibilities," which means yes, in the language of public trust. We waited for tox screens, for rope fibers, for marine growth estimates. Patience isn't a virtue in this job. It's a trench you dig with your nails. In that trench, rumors grow like weeds. The wife, ex-wife, appeared with a lawyer who smiled with everything except his voice. She asked for space. The internet gave none. The Sun posted a photo of the skyline and wrote, "He was complicated. So am I." The captain disappeared from town for a few days. When he returned, he had a different story about where the life jackets went. The chef deleted her feed and hired counsel. Money moves like weather. You feel it before instruments register change. A deputy leaked a sentence he should have kept. The rope came from the yacht. That narrowed our corridor. The storage locker showed one coil missing, fresh ends cut, fibers matching what slept now in evidence, like a snake pinched behind glass. Fingerprints on rope are dreams. You don't get them. But bleach leaves a trail where conscience doesn't bother. In the galley drain they found a cocktail of cleaner and salt, and in the sink, a notch that looked like a hurried knife had slipped once. The last ping from Vance's private phone hit near the bow at 7:45 p.m., right between sunset and the last visible wake. The voicemail he left 2 hours earlier for his attorney said, "We'll talk in the morning about the transfer." And then a pause long enough to hear a door close and something heavier than a glass set down. It sounded like relief. Relief is a fragile thing to put on tape. It cracks under pressure. When the big pieces land, the small ones stop rattling. A stone on the ocean floor, a rope that remembered being new, a selfie that pretended not to hurt. We had a body now, a place, a plan. What we didn't have was a hand in the act. The ocean doesn't show faces. That's our work on land, among people who look the camera in the eye and ask if we're done yet. We never are. Night came back. The town slept. The truth didn't. The coroner's report arrived the way bad news always does. Too early for comfort, too late for hope. Cause of death, drowning, with perimortem trauma consistent with blunt force to the occipital region. Translation: a stone can be both plan and punctuation. No defensive wounds left enough story to convict on their own. Toxicology found traces of zolpidem. He didn't take sleeping pills. Someone wanted him slow enough to cooperate with gravity. Someone who knew his glass, his schedule, his appetite for sunsets he measured in ounces. We went back to the marina footage with a patience we hadn't earned yet. At 6:09 p.m., the chef carried 2 ice buckets and a bottle whose label caught the light like a wink. At 6:13, the captain rolled a coil of line down the dock, new and bright as a lie you think you can keep. At 6:22, a third figure crossed the frame hood up, posture built out of caution. The face never turned. The gait carried weight in one shoulder. We slowed, sharpened, argued with pixels. There's an art to admitting what's not there. The SUV's plate was mud-smeared, but the wheel hub had a crack like a lightning fork. The same fork appeared on a vehicle stopped 2 days later for a broken taillight in Sarasota. The driver was a private contractor who had done security consulting for Vance. He had a non-disclosure contract ironed like a uniform. He also had a bruised knuckle and a way of answering questions, like they were math problems and we were short a variable. When we asked how long he'd known Vance, he said, "Long enough to know he pays on time. You don't arrest a man for being careful. You follow him until care makes a mistake." He bought coffee. He bought a tarp. He bought an attaché strap rated for 400 pounds. He threw away the receipt in a can outside a pharmacy. The trash truck arrived before we did. He left his phone in airplane mode like a hymn. But he met someone in the park under a banyan that had seen more secrets than the courthouse. She was small, expensive, and furious, in a way money pretends to solve, but never does. We kept our distance. The ex-wife's alibi purred. Charity gala. Photographed twice. The timestamps, however, were posted by the Foundation intern at 10:17 and 10:19, long after the storm broke and long after the body began to settle. She could have arrived late and still worn the night like a cloak, but money leaves scent. Hers smelled like self-preservation, not murder. The son's hands shook when we talked about rope. Grief and guilt looked similar in the first weeks. He was in New York, angry in a hotel lobby, punching a marble that didn't punch back. His phone stayed ugly but honest. Then there was the chef. She'd told friends she was quitting boats for good. She told us Vance liked his champagne cold and his pills not at all. We asked about the bottle. She didn't blink. He brought it aboard himself, she said, and gave a brand we confirmed was in his locker at home. But the zolpidem didn't come from a bottle. It came from a white powder with a bitter top note stirred into citrus. The galley waste filter found a lemon peel with a cut down its spine like a vein. The knife slot had one blade missing. When the forensics team finished combing the salon carpet, they found a single, broken hair caught under the couch rail. Short, gray, synthetic. We looked at the captain's shaved head and the chef's long ponytail, and then at our consultant, who wore a gray beanie even in Florida heat. He laughed. "You found a hat hair." He wasn't wrong, but contempt is a leash a good investigator knows how to tug. We asked him to demonstrate knots he'd used to secure cargo in rough weather. He tied 4 with a speed that came from muscle memory. None matched the ugly double we cut from the rope. The internet solved the case 3 different ways before we solved it once. They always do. In one version, Vance staged his death, tied the rope, and swam away to Bolivia. In another, pirates we don't have anymore took the boat and wrote no note. In the third, the ex-wife turned a ring and a trapdoor opened somewhere beneath Naples. None of those stories could lift a stone. Insurance became motive's loudest voice. A key man clause on a loan that would forgive debt upon death. A life policy wrapped in a trust no one could see through without a court order and a reason. We got both, eventually. The beneficiary wasn't the ex-wife or the son. It was the holding company that owned the shipyard. Vance had been quietly trying to sell a company whose CEO once played minor league ball and now played golf with men who own islands. He had a problem. A deal on the brink and a partner refusing to budge. We visited the CEO in an office that smelled like money and lemons. He smiled like polished teak. He said he loved Vance like a brother, which means less in boardrooms than in churches. He showed us emails where Vance delayed, demanded, danced. He was complicated, the CEO said, borrowing the son's line like it belonged to him. He had alibis layered like armor. A time-stamped tea time, a dinner, a charity call. Money buys receipts. Money also buys people who will tell you what they were doing when they weren't doing it. The turn came from something small, a diver's scratch on the stone. Under the algae, shallow grooves marked an old chisel line. This wasn't a random rock. It was shaped once, cut into a block. We checked salvage records. 2 months earlier, Asterion's research tender had pulled a chunk of limestone onto the dock for stability testing. The stone used to be anchored beneath a private slip at a property owned by the security consultant's shell company. He'd moved weight before he needed it. Murder rarely improvises successfully. It rehearses. We sat the consultant down with a lawyer he couldn't afford on his own. We laid out the stone, the rope purchase, the meeting under the tree, the beanie fibers, the tender's salvage logs, the lemon peel like a fingerprint. We didn't mention the knot. He did. First said the knot wasn't his. Said whoever tied it was panicking. He thought that helped him. It did not. Panic is a social event. If you weren't there to see the knot, you were close enough to imagine it. Confessions don't come like waterfalls. They seep. He said he'd been asked to stage a scare to spook Vance into signing the sale, throw him in a tender, dump him later along some mangroves with a story about pirates. He said he refused because the ocean makes fools of planners. He said he only came to watch the perimeter from the dock. Then he stopped because his lawyer squeezed his elbow. The space between what he admitted and what happened was exactly the size of a murder. We pressed the CEO. He showed outrage. First, a good lawyer always teaches that, then shock, then sadness that would photograph well. He threw the consultant under a bus, big enough to drive a season through. Payments showed up we hadn't seen yet. Marine consulting, risk mitigation, facility shoring. Words that mean one thing on land and another on water. He claimed ignorance. The consultant claimed freelancing. The sea claimed jurisdiction over the rope. We were still missing one person. The woman in the red dress. When she finally surfaced, it wasn't at a gala. It was in a small house in Bonita Springs, where the AC rattled and the blinds told stories about rent due. She'd been the chef's roommate once. She'd dated the consultant briefly. She'd cleaned the CEO's guest house for 3 months and quit without notice. She knew much and trusted little. She also had a photo. The stone on the tender, a rope coiled like a promise, a date stamp that broke an alibi like dry wood. The chef cracked next. She didn't mix the drug, she said. She poured 2 drinks and took 1 sip and dumped the rest in the sink when Vance turned his back. Her story fit the lemon peel's timeline only if someone else doctored the second glass before she came aboard. Marina cam video showed the consultant carrying a small case onto the yacht at 66p. He never admitted opening it. He didn't have to. The captain's role was smaller, but not clean. He cut the AIS to avoid paparazzi, he said, a thing he'd done before. He heard a thud and a splash, and a voice he didn't recognize say, "Hold him." He stayed at the helm because fear is a job as much as a feeling. He turned when told, he turned back. He didn't throw a line. He took cash. Later, he didn't spend fast enough not to leave a trail. Accessory is an ugly word. It fit. Arrests feel nothing like justice. They're administrative, sweaty, and never as loud as the crime they answer. We picked up the consultant, the captain, and after a grand jury made a series of careful nods, the CEO, whose alibis were heavier than his heart. Charges: murder in the first, conspiracy, tampering, maritime interference. Courtrooms like to make new phrases when old ones feel insufficient. The ex-wife made a statement about grief. The son didn't come. In trial, the knot became a character. A rope expert, yes. We have those stood like a pastor and told 12 strangers how desperation ties. The double overhand with a half hitch isn't elegant. It's a fist with fingernails. The consultant's hands told the truth when the mouth refused. The stone's chisel marks pointed backward in time to a plan cut slowly, patiently motive wearing a work glove. The lemon peel sang a quiet song about bitter edges. The selfie on the yacht told a story about denial 5 minutes before impact. Verdicts don't fix holes. The jury did its work. Life without parole for the consultant. 20 for the captain. 40 for the CEO, who had never been spoken to like that in his life and did not learn from it. Money tried to appeal. Time inched forward in small, stubborn steps. The ocean kept rolling because it does not attend court. People asked us if we felt relief. Relief is a door that opens into another room of names. Gregory Vance left behind an empire. A son who stopped punching marble and started visiting water. An ex-wife who stayed wealthy and slept badly. And a town that learned again what it already knew. Storms don't always come from the sky. We returned to the coordinates one last time. Because closure is a ritual we perform for the living. The rope scars on the seabed had blurred. The stone's cradle was a soft hole. A grouper eyed us and decided, correctly, we were not interesting. We tell these stories to put weight back where weight was taken. We tell them slowly, even when the first lines run. We put the selfie beside the stone, the champagne beside the rope, the sunset beside the hollow on the ocean floor, and we refuse to pretend that wealth makes you waterproof. In the end, the sea swallowed the performance and returned the facts in pieces we had to learn to hold without shaking. Midnight came, the evidence spoke, and the truth, even heavy, floated.